She tells the world they met in a Gucci store. A romantic story. The superstar walks in, the salesgirl looks up, their eyes meet.
The problem is that a former colleague of hers says that story is completely made up.
He says they met at a nightclub and that Ronaldo's team invented the Gucci story to make her look better.
So the question is not just who Georgina Rodriguez really is. The question is whether anything we have been told about her is actually true.
Today, we tell the full story. From a tiny city in northern Spain where nobody becomes famous, to a 35-carat diamond ring worth millions of dollars, and everything in between that her Netflix show very carefully chose not to show you.
Because the version of Georgina Rodriguez that most people know is a produced image, a woman of elegance, luxury, style, and total devotion to her family.
But underneath that image is a story that is far more complicated and, honestly, far more interesting than anything in her show.
Georgina Rodriguez was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1994, but she grew up in Jaca, a tiny city in northeastern Spain right at the foot of the Pyrenees Mountains near the French border, population around 13,000 people.
Quiet streets, mountains all around, a place where the big event of the year is the local carnival, a place where everybody knows everybody and nobody expects to end up on the cover of a magazine.
Her childhood was difficult in ways she has only partially talked about publicly. Her father, Jorge Rodriguez, was in and out of prison for drug trafficking. He was present in her life at certain points, but absent in the ways that matter most when you are growing up.
Her family did not have money. That is not a dramatic exaggeration. That is just the reality of her early years.
And then her mother died in a car accident when Georgina was still a teenager. She was left without the one parent who had been consistently there for her.
At an age when most teenagers are worrying about exams and weekend plans, Georgina was figuring out how to build a life with almost no support underneath her.
And she had a dream, a specific, concrete dream that had nothing to do with football or fame or meeting a famous athlete.
She wanted to be a ballet dancer. She had studied classical ballet since she was 4 years old, 10 years of lessons, 10 years of discipline and dedication, and a very clear idea of who she was and what she wanted.
But the lessons cost money her family did not have, so she put the dream away, not because she gave up, because she had no choice.
And she started working.
First, as a waitress in Jaca, serving tables in the same small city where everyone knew her family's story, where the future did not look particularly bright no matter which direction she looked.
Then she made a move that tells you something important about who she is. She applied to be a nanny in Bristol, England, a completely different country, a language she barely spoke, a city where she knew nobody.
She got the job, £125 a week. She learned English because she understood that speaking only Spanish was a ceiling she could not afford to keep above her head.
At 18, she moved to Madrid, the capital, the place where things actually happen in Spain.
She worked retail during the day, bar shifts at night. She sent money back to what remained of her family in Jaca. She lived in a shared flat with roommates because a flat of her own was not possible on what she was earning.
Her net worth in 2016 was estimated at just over $10,000. She was 22 years old, working 2 jobs, and covering basic monthly expenses was a real daily calculation.
This is not the glamorous backstory. This is the actual backstory.
And then she got a job at Gucci on the Serrano, one of the most expensive shopping streets in Madrid.
Or at least that is the official version of what happened next.
Because here is where the story gets genuinely complicated. Pablo Boone, a man who worked with Georgina during that period, went public with a very different version of events.
He claims Georgina and Ronaldo did not meet in the Gucci store. He says they met at a nightclub called Opium in Madrid, a high-end venue, a place where athletes and models and wealthy people go on weekends.
Both of them were there on the same night. They talked, something started. And then, according to Boone, Ronaldo's team made a decision. The tabloids were going to cover this relationship regardless. The question was how it would be framed. A nightclub pickup is one kind of story. A chance encounter in a luxury fashion store is a completely different story.
One sounds like a weekend fling, the other sounds like fate. So, according to Boone, the Gucci story was constructed deliberately as a piece of image management before the relationship even became public.
Georgina has never addressed this directly, not in interviews, not in her autobiography, not in any of the 3 seasons of her Netflix show. She tells the Gucci story every single time as if it is simply the truth.
Boone says there is photographic evidence. He says people close to both of them know what actually happened.
Either a former colleague is lying for attention, or the origin story of one of the most famous relationships in football was invented from the beginning.
We do not know which one is true, and that ambiguity is exactly what makes this story so interesting.
What is not in dispute is what happened after they started dating.
Ronaldo was already the most famous athlete on the planet, the most followed person on Instagram at the time, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, living in a mansion, traveling by private jet.
And Georgina went from earning bar wages on weekends to living inside that world almost overnight.
The internet had a response to that immediately, and it was not kind.
Gold digger, that was the label. 2 words that followed her everywhere from the moment the relationship became public.
And it wasn't just anonymous comments in the reply section. 2 separate Spanish television networks ran serious investigative segments about Georgina. They spoke to people who claimed to know her personally, former friends, former colleagues, people who described her as calculating, as someone who had always talked openly about wanting to be wealthy, who said she was strategic about the people she spent time with.
Georgina did not accept that quietly. She sued both networks. The legal battles were expensive, long, and very public.
She won on certain points, but winning a lawsuit does not make a narrative disappear. Once a label attaches itself to someone in the public eye, it tends to stay regardless of what any court decides.
And then, in 2022, came the Netflix show, I Am Georgina. First season, then a second, then a third.
Top 10 in 46 countries, over 23 million euros in earnings for Georgina directly from the show, a massive commercial success by any standard.
And one of the most divisive programs on the entire platform.
The people who loved it said she came across as genuinely warm, a devoted mother who clearly adores her children, someone who has not forgotten the hardship of her early life, even while living surrounded by unimaginable luxury.
The people who hated it said it was 90 minutes of yachts and private jets and designer handbags with almost nothing real underneath it, that the whole show felt like a very expensive piece of image rehabilitation.
One reviewer said it was a masterclass in living without apparent purpose, that she spends more time on screen talking about her body and her appearance than on anything that actually matters.
Another said the show is essentially a guide for how to transform your life entirely through a relationship with someone famous, and that presenting that as inspiration for young women is genuinely problematic.
The critics had real points. The show is, on the surface, extremely shallow. The depth some viewers claim to find in it requires a lot of generous interpretation.
But here's what almost all of the criticism completely missed.
In April 2022, while the first season of her show was still being watched by millions of people, Georgina and Ronaldo announced they were expecting twins, a girl and a boy.
The girl, Bella Esmeralda, was born healthy and is doing well.
The boy, who they named Angel, died at birth.
Georgina had to grieve the loss of one child while simultaneously caring for a newborn, while managing a household with 4 other children, while Ronaldo was playing professional football, while 50 million Instagram followers were watching every post she made.
There is no image management strategy for that. There is no narrative you construct to make that easier. That is just loss, real and complete and devastating.
And she handled it with a dignity and openness that even the people who had spent years criticizing her found difficult to attack.
In the 3rd season of the show, she spoke about Angel directly. She said she carries him with her every day, that she talks to him, that she believes she will see him again.
Whatever you believe about her motivations, whatever you think about the Gucci story, whatever weight you give to the gold digger accusations, that grief belongs entirely to her, and it is real.
In 2025, 3 years after that loss, Ronaldo proposed.
A 35-carat diamond ring, reported to be worth somewhere between $2 and $27 million, depending on the source. Georgina posted a photo of their hands on Instagram. The caption said, "Yes, I do. In this life and in all my lives."
9 years after the Gucci store, or the nightclub, depending on who you believe.
And now she's one of the most followed women in Instagram in the world, a brand completely in her own right, a business, deals and contracts that she negotiates independently of Ronaldo.
The girl who could not afford ballet lessons at 14 is now earning more from a single brand deal than her father ever made in his entire life.
Which brings us to the question this entire story has been building toward.
Is Georgina Rodriguez a genuinely self-made woman? Someone who survived a genuinely difficult childhood, worked across multiple countries, built real professional skills, and earned her place in the world through intelligence and determination.
Or is the gold digger label, however uncomfortable it sounds when you say it out loud, actually more accurate than her carefully produced brand would like you to believe?
The nanny wages in Bristol, the bar shifts in Madrid, the decision to leave Hakka when leaving felt like the only option, those things are real and they are not nothing.
The lawsuits over the gold digger coverage, the former colleague who says the love story was invented, the Netflix show that often feels more like an extended advertisement than a documentary, those things are also real.
And here is the thing about Georgina Rodriguez that is genuinely difficult to say out loud.
Both versions of her can be true at the same time.
The woman who came from a hard place and worked her way towards something better, and the woman who recognized an extraordinary opportunity and moved toward it with complete intention. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Most people who build something from nothing are both. The question is just whether we're comfortable admitting that strategy and survival can look exactly the same from the outside.
And maybe the most honest thing to say about Georgina Rodriguez is simply this. She had one shot. She did not miss it, and what she built after that shot is entirely her own.
Whether that makes her inspiring or calculating is a question only you can answer.
So I want to know what you think. Is Georgina Rodriguez a genuinely self-made woman who earned everything she has? Or is the gold digger narrative more accurate than her Netflix show suggests?
Leave your answer in the comments and send this episode to someone who has a strong opinion about her, because those are always the best conversations.
Subscribe to the channel. Every week, we tell the real stories behind the headlines in natural English. No textbooks, no grammar exercises, just stories worth talking about.
See you next episode.